The C4 and Bryan Nehman podcast. Watch the show every weekday at WBAL.com/video. Now, more C4 and Bryan.
All right, so I saw this headline in the Baltimore Banner this morning caught my attention that a Baltimore County school board member was censured.
Yeah, censured.
Like, dang. What the heck happened there?
Right.
Disrespectful conduct is what happened. They have a long article about it with quotes, but most importantly, they have the video of the exchange in which that
led to this
inappropriate behavior and why they needed a censure for it. The board member's name is Maggie Litz Domanowski. Now, I have no idea who she is. I don't even know her political philosophy. But I watched the video, and I was like, where's the controversy?
What happened?
What are we talking about? I mean, this is like tame. This is like polite. This is just like getting information.
It's questioning. It's what you do in a meeting.
It's unbelievable. But they said that she was rude and disrespectful to the superintendent. Now, I'm not going to play all 7 minutes because I'm telling you, it's boring. It's like, C-SPAN on.
It's a board meeting.
It's C-SPAN on Quaaludes. I mean, it's just like it's not gonna get you riled up. But I'll play just a couple of snippets of it, of her being asked to move on, and her saying, "Well, I got a little bit more time here," and then asking some questions of the school superintendent, who is asking for a $3 billion budget. So here's a little bit of this Board of Education meeting that led to a censure of a board member for being rude and inappropriate.
I'm going to ask you to hold your question to allow other board members to ask questions.
Minutes,
right? Are we at 3 minutes? Right. Where are we?
We're at 1:30.
1:30. Proceed, Ms. Domanowski.
With the Career and College Readiness, it's taking a 50% cut this year. How will this affect programs like AVID, ECAP, early college access programs, and advanced placement?
She's asking this of the superintendent, Miriam Rogers.
Can you point me to which?
Career and College Readiness.
I know which page you're referring to.
It's in your budget. Cut it by 50% this year.
So I would request which page we're speaking of so I can respond to whether or not these are blueprint
I have
funds.
it written down. The funds are, it's $1.27 million for this year, and 2025 it's $2.63 million. It's general fund.
Seems like the team is looking for that page.
Okay, so she's asking for information.
A legitimate question. And let's before we get there, everybody, you just heard one of the board members. So let's move on to another thing. So the rule is you get 3 minutes to have Q&A with a board member. They were only at 1:30. You heard him say, so it wasn't even close to 3 minutes for that board member, whoever that was, I don't know whose voice that was, to intervene that way. So that's a sign for me.
That was a chair.
That was a chair.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. To intervene at half of her time. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
That jumped out at me.
All right, so she didn't have the page number. Maybe she could have said, I don't have the page number, but here's what it says,
Yeah,
which she then ultimately did.
Exactly.
But it's your budget.
But it's your
and again,
budget.
she's trying to find out information about a $3 billion budget.
This is college and career readiness, a very important part of the budget.
Okay, so it continues. And again, this is the most explosive part of this back and forth where she was censured.
Right. Ms. Domanowski, do you have an additional question while her team is looking for the documentation of your
Yeah, but you're probably going to have to keep looking for documentation if you don't know, because the rest of my questions are pretty like that as well.
Well, I don't think we should presume that. I think you should ask your question and we'll find out.
Okay, so the Executive Director of Literacy and Humanities Department 95, did this replace the Teaching and Learning Department 95 of the previous years in 25 and 24, 23?
I'm telling you, that's it. There's nothing else. And she was censured by the Board of Education.
Vote. It was a 7-4 vote with certain board members quoting the banner saying, while her, and I do agree, her questioning was confrontational. I've seen worse, much worse in board, and it was not in any way worthy of a vote on anything. It was not worth, even after, she's in the article, Bryan, the board member Domanowski says, I could have, maybe it was seen as a little bit aggressive, but that's what happens in a meeting. That's when you go back and forth in a meeting.
Yeah.
She's a board member.
Isn't that the point of these hearings?
Yeah.
Isn't that the point
to get
of having
to
someone
questions.
testifying?
Yes.
Asking them questions? Was she rude in any way whatsoever?
No, I wouldn't say rude at all.
She didn't raise her voice?
No.
There's no inappropriate language?
No.
There's no yelling. There's no screaming. There's nothing but questions being asked of a superintendent who gets paid $300,000 a year and is asking for $3 billion in taxes to pay for this budget. And again, I don't even know what her politics are because, quite frankly, she may be saying, hey, we should be adding more to this or not cutting in this particular area. I don't even know where she was on, wanting more cuts or fewer cuts or wanting to put more money in.
From what I heard, there at no point did Dr. Miriam Rogers suggest that Ms. Domanowski was out of line. It's the other board members that jumped Domanowski, which is my problem because it didn't seem to me that Superintendent Rogers was bothered. She just didn't have the information. She was searching for the information to get to her.
They said that she used a tone and manner that was perceived as uncivil and aggressive.
Yes, it was aggressive. I'm admit that
I don't even think it was aggressive. That's aggressive.
But Bryan, aggressive is not a negative term.
Go to Annapolis. I mean, go to Washington D.C. That's what you do at these meetings.
But aggressive is not a negative connotation. Aggressive means I want the answer. That doesn't mean it's negative when you use the word aggressive. If it's disrespectful, yeah, but it wasn't. And it was, she wanted the answers to her questions.
I would use the words straightforward, matter of fact.
Okay, you can use those words. I like aggressive, and I have no problem with that. But I don't look at aggressive as a pejorative. I don't look at that, what she did in an aggressive manner, as any way being disrespectful or not, hurting anything at all. At all.
Listen, your feelings when you're at this level shouldn't matter all that much. I mean, these, and she was professional in the way that she handled herself. And, look, we interview people. We interviewed Miriam Rogers, and we had a back and forth exchange. I try to be professional as much as I possibly can. And I know sometimes that I can get a little bit overheated, but
Bryan,
I do my best with the newsmakers and the elected officials
we go
to
that
be
way with
calm and cool.
We do that way with Governor Moore. We had Governor Moore. Go back and forth.
Congressman Ivey, we've been back and forth. I've been back and forth with Andy Harris.
Mark Elrich loves it. Mark Elrich loves the back and forth.
I mean, you try to be as professional as you can while still pressing and asking questions of this. Now, with you, I yell and scream.
Of course, well, that's the deal. But here's the difference, though. We're talking, everybody, as Bryan said, about a $3 billion budget that has been increased significantly. And at the same time as being increased, this board member, elected, I'm assuming, because I think all elected now, elected board member on behalf of her, constituents, wants to know why the college and career readiness is being cut. Why she's asking legitimate questions about a budget that's in front of them.
Right. The banner has a couple of quotes from other board members. There was one who voted for it, Booker Dwyer. I don't have the first name.
I don't know who that is either.
Voted for the censure.
Tierra Booker Dwyer.
She said, when students are speaking about a board member's behavior, the board has to respond.
What students?
I don't know.
What students?
Students were the audience.
But what do you mean speaking? What would they say? That's a BS.
The students were concerned to the board members that she was too much. Well,
that's a BS
answer. Should learn that when you are a CEO of a board
yes.
or an entity that takes money from the public, then there is
questioning. There's questioning that goes on.
Answer process that you have to go through. And you better be able to answer the questions about why you do these things.
It's not going to be a nice little kumbaya moment. You've got to answer hard questions.
I mean, this is the definition of snowflake.
It is.
Like when we throw that word around when it's put out there, and sometimes, yes, it's a word that has jumped the shark over the years. But this is snowflake behavior from the board and from students who are upset about this. I mean, my goodness, these students, like, what's it like in their house? Did their mom and dad ever fight? Did they ever get into it? Did their mom and dad ever tell them to go clean their room ever?
Now, you know what this tells me, though? But you know what this tells me? And I'm just looking at it beyond just, what's the surface level. When you have the board this sensitive towards the type of questions that that board member Domanowski was asking, was she on to something? Was she on to something in asking questions about this part of the budget that are sensitive to other board members that they wanted to shut it down? They didn't want necessarily light shined on with the areas of the budget that she was asking. So I always look for what it doesn't make sense on the surface of it why you would censure her. But is the other reason, don't ask about that. Don't get into that in public, in front of people. How dare you? We do that, behind closed doors when nobody knows about.
This is another reason why students shouldn't be on any of these stinking boards.
The
student member is quoted as saying, "Since the incident happened in public, then there should be a resolution in public."
The resolution is answer the question. That's the resolution. Answer the question.
Yeah.
That's the resolution.
There is a question. It's answer the damn question.
Exactly. That's the resolution.
I'm sorry.
Bryan, you know how I feel about these boards.
It is so feckless.
You know how I feel about these boards.
Another reason why you shouldn't trust any one of them. Because you got to get to the bottom of it.
During the pandemic, since we're 5 years today, March 13th, talking about this, we had Dr. Paul Offord on there earlier talking about 5 years since we went through the shutting down of everything. I said during the pandemic, school boards have outlived their usefulness. At one point, they were a check and balance on the school system, in general. Now they have become nothing but sounding boards. They're echo chambers. They're nothing but corporate shills for the school system. Abolish them. Just have one superintendent at every school, and that's who you go to for Q&A, that type of thing. But school boards are useless. They're not what they're supposed to be.
I don't know.
How much of a check and balance do you see from them?
I know. You've been saying this for years, and I've been against it. But, judging from this, I may have to go to your side.
I could bring other instances up. Look what happened with the collegiate school for boys when they tried to shut that down. I could bring 1,000,001 examples of how they are antithetical to the educational progress. They want to keep things as they are, the status quo. They don't want to move beyond that.
I forget. What is it in Baltimore County? Are some of them elected now or not?
Yeah, I think most of them are. That's why I'm just
well,
not
then
sure.
If I'm elected, I'm like double barreling it to you. I'm seriously. Give me your decorum. I'm elected to do this job. Yeah. I'm elected to make sure that my constituents are getting their return on investment.
Nice word.
And
I'm saying.
I want these answers now. I mean, I'm sorry. And the censure aspect of it is just a joke because there was nothing inappropriate about the questions, nor her tone, nor her style. That's what you expect from board members when it comes to a CEO who is, again, requesting $3 billion of taxpayer
I'm going to say, audience,
money.
Again, when you hear that type of outrage from these other board members towards that, what was she asking about that they were so upset about? Maybe there's something legitimate in her questions that the board members don't want the general public to be aware of.
And I would just say this, in defense of the teachers union, there is a former teachers union head who said that they were legitimate questions.
Hello.
And that the censure was an attempt to intimidate her.
But the key said is former, because she can talk now. Before she had shackles. Now she's a former teacher union.
So the censure is the bully in this.
You have been listening to the C4 and Bryan Nehman podcast. Send feedback to C4 on Twitter at C4 Show and Bryan at Bryan Nehman. Catch C4 and Bryan live each weekday from 5:30 to 10 a.m. on WBAL News Radio 1090, FM 101.5, or stream anywhere on WBAL.com and the WBAL app.